This is News 3 Nightly with Jim Snyder.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us in. People all over the country are watching as our state trailblazes the way for legal online poker with real money. The Station Casino's own site, ultimatepoker.com, dealt its first hand this morning. News 3 Sergio Avila is logged on in our computer center. And Sergio, it really was a race to be first, and now this site is under the microscope.
Jim, it's a historic day because now here in Nevada, adults can log on to ultimatepoker.com and start wagering on the site here. But you know what? It has to be within Nevada's borders. And one of the major concerns is making sure that kids cannot log on. The chips have officially gone online. UltimatePoker.com is the first legal, real money poker site in the country. With that honor comes a critical eye. The Gaming Control Board is taking the next 30 days to closely monitor how the site works. Here's Chairman A.G. Burnett.
Now everybody in the world is going to be trying to get onto that website. And the first moment that we recognize that there's a problem or a flaw in any of the software or the technology involved, we have the ability to either shut it down or fix it.
One major concern is keeping kids from logging on. Ultimate Gaming CEO Tobin Pryor says they're confident in their system. If you're planning to register, you need to fork over some personal information, including your name, address, social security number, and a cell phone number.
All that information that we do require people to give us in the sign-up procedure, in the registration process, we then use to verify against third-party databases and so on to make sure that they all corroborate. If they don't all corroborate, we then go into a situation where we start asking people to send us physical documentation that we can verify.
If they can't verify who you are, you're shut out. Just like buying alcohol, if you provide online gaming to a minor, you're breaking the law. Burnett says there's also safeguards against sharing your account because the system learns how you play.
Many companies utilize algorithmic software in order to ascertain whether the person is acting differently or playing differently than normal, and then some companies will actually call that person up and ask, are you playing right now?
They're complex protections for an industry that experts say could bring in about $100 million a year in revenue and set the standard for approval by the feds. And if the Gaming Control Board is satisfied with how the site works, they'll give it a final approval at one of their future board meetings. Burnett says that even the brick-and-mortar casinos cannot offer a 100% guarantee that underage players will not try to play. He says in the casinos, they deal with those incidents as they come up, and it will work the same way online. In the computer center, Sergio Avila, News 3. Jim.
All right, we'll see if they can expand that pool of players outside the state borders at some point. Sergio, thank you. Now we take you up north to Carson City, where the state's top money minds will gather tomorrow to lay out how much money is in Nevada's piggy bank. Our Capitol correspondent Mackenzie Warren is helping us get a jump on what these numbers mean to you at home.
And Jim, we'll keep it simple. If there is more money in the bank than expected, that means more money for more services. Things like road construction, perhaps some more cash being funneled into Nevada classrooms. But if there is less money, you can expect to bring on the cuts. Tomorrow, Nevada lawmakers will get a look at their allowance, and depending on what that amount is, the priorities here could shift.
We've been having real conversations.
Assembly Speaker Marilyn Kirkpatrick says the math will tell all. Is there more money to go around, or are we short?
Tomorrow will give us the groundwork on where we're at.
Some say talk is cheap. When are these real solutions going to be laid out?
You know what I would say, there's nobody at home who wants us to just put some random stuff out there that doesn't work, has unintended consequences. So I would much rather take my time, have a long-term plan, a long-term vision for the state, and if that means that talk is cheap, I'm willing to, do what's right for constituents for the long term.
As Democrats wait for the numbers before rolling out their tax package, Republican Senator Michael Roberson has long released his plan. He wants to double the mining industry's taxes to fund education, much to the chagrin of Democrats. They're not so happy that you came out with your tax plan before they did.
Well, both parties need to quit playing politics with education funding in this state. It's unacceptable. We've got to fix it. So I'm tired of the politics. If If others want to play politics, they can, but I want to get something done.
The Speaker says she's worried that coming down on one industry, taxing mines more, is going to kill jobs.
Mackenzie, they're paying a third of what gaming pays. Does that mean we're charging gaming 3 times too much? We can't afford to cut gaming taxes by 2/3. So I think that's a fallacious argument.
Casino mogul Steve Wynn will be in Carson City this week to put the pressure on lawmakers to tax mining and leave gaming alone. You think Steve Wynn will help your case on Thursday?
Well, we'll see. I think Mr. Wynn has been clear for the last 25 years where he stands on the disparity in taxation between our 2 largest industries, mining and gaming.
And to that, the Speaker says this.
Industry-specific taxes don't work for the long term of the state. You know, when somebody gets a cough, the entire state gets a cold, if that's how you build your budget.
And there's another factor in all this money talk. That's the margins tax. The teachers union wants to tax businesses that make $1 million or more. The margins tax is already headed to the ballot box in 2014. It sounds more like that broad-based approach the Speaker favors, but she hasn't said what she wants just yet. But Republicans think the only way they can kill this margins tax is by putting a more popular tax. That's the mining tax in 2014. But Jim, they're going to have to convince lawmakers that mining isn't paying their fair share before they ask constituents that same question.
So many moving parts to this. It's amazing how it all comes together over the next month or so, and we're glad we have you up there to watch it for us, Mackenzie. Thank you. If you are watching us right now from your apartment, have you ever wondered how your rent compares to others? Well, the average Las Vegas apartment now costs $740 a month. That's down slightly from last quarter and way down from before the bubble burst, according to researchers at UNLV. News 3's Elizabeth Donatelli joins us live from near Maryland Parkway, and Karen with more on what this means for renters.
Yeah, Jim, if you're driving around the valley, you've probably seen signs like this one, maybe even $99 move-in specials like the one behind me. That's because there's stiff competition out there to get renters into their properties in a time in the first quarter of this year when vacancies are slightly higher.
Come on in.
Suzette Walsh shows us inside the Aviata apartments.
All the appliances you see are included.
Making sure to point out extra features, crown molding, cabinets, drop lighting, appealing to the new consumer.
It used to be people were, living here temporarily. Apartments used to be temporary homes. They're not anymore.
And so complexes are adjusting. Lush landscaping, full gyms, and dropping prices.
When I first started here, the 1-bedroom was $950 per month, regular market rate. Now they are between $740 and $770 per month.
This is a trend valley-wide. Average apartment rents dropping more than 15% since the end of 2007, according to Luis Lopez at UNLV's Lead Institute for Real Estate Studies.
There's many buyers right now taking up properties and putting them up for rent and trying to seek out profits. So that creates a little bit of competition for apartments.
Breaking it down by zip code, we find the highest average apartment rent in the west, the Summerlin area in the red, and another cluster in the southwest. The cheapest and also the highest vacancies in the northeast. Moving to a map of vacancies, we learned the rate was 4.5% in 2006 and is now up to nearly 10%.
There's quite a bit of work for these apartment landlords to do in order so that can lease out their properties and get those properties producing income.
Something the manager at the Aviata knows firsthand, which is why they are thrilled the office is busy and most of the 456 apartments leased.
I think it comes down to, taking care of each individual person, making sure they're happy.
This is the UNLV report that we're talking about, and while they cannot predict the future, they do expect that there could be more new construction in the area, which could mean more temporary vacancies, putting more pressure on the rental market. Reporting live, Elizabeth Donatelli, News 3.
All right, sure some people are going to do some checking around town after this one. Elizabeth, thank you. And now another number that's moving in the right direction for local families. A new record for average weekly wages in Nevada, hitting $877 in the first quarter of this year, nearly 3% higher than a year earlier. State economists say they have seen gains in weekly wages in 7 of the past 10 quarters. The average wage for 2020 2012 as a whole hit a record too, $839 a week. That's up 1.3%. It's still behind the rate of inflation, though, which was 2.1% for the same period. 2 people have been fired following the ongoing patient dumping investigation at Ross and Neal Psychiatric Hospital. News 3's Marissa Mike also learned additional members of the hospital's medical staff are being disciplined for failing to follow procedures when busing discharged patients out of state.
Jim, of the near 1,500 cases of discharged patients who were shipped out of state on a bus by Ross and Neal in the last 5 years, health officials say there were 10 instances where staff did not follow policy. So that means there were 10 cases where patients may have been sent to places all over the country with no hope waiting at their destination. An internal investigation determined as many as 10 cases were improperly handled. Health officials tell News 3 as a result of this investigation, 9 Ross and Neal medical staff were identified as responsible for discharge plans that did not make certain people were being delivered to friends or family. 4 no longer work at Ross and Neal Hospital, and of the remaining 5, 2 were fired, 3 others receiving disciplinary action. Discipline could mean a letter of correction or all the way to suspension. Dr. Stuart Gertner, who used to oversee Ross and Neal Hospital, says he's glad Governor Sandoval made it mandatory that patients have escorts when they're discharged out of state. But he adds, it's unfortunate the change came from the story of James Brown, a homeless schizophrenic who was bused from Las Vegas to Sacramento with no ties to that area.
You can change policies. That doesn't necessarily mean people will follow them. After all, the policies were in place for Mr. Brown and people didn't follow them.
In addition to criminal probes by the city attorneys of San Francisco and Los Angeles, the feds are conducting their own investigation. We'll get access to their full report after Ross and Neal finishes and submits a plan of correction. That update should come in the next few weeks, Jim.
All right, and some reforms already in place. Marissa, thank you. The Firefly restaurant on Paradise is shut down after dozens of customers got seriously sick.
They understand where the restaurant will be closed during the investigation. We just want to tie everything together.
We will have the latest on the search for the cause and tell you about the system in place to monitor the food you eat when you dine out. Also ahead, they've got to deal with NASA to add on to the International Space Station. Now our local space company is making plans to send people out into the final frontier.
How cool would that be? I'm Kevin Janison of the News 3 Weather Center. The winds ramping up in neighborhoods all across the valley. A cold front, believe it or not, slicing through southern Nevada right now. We'll tell you what that means for your Wednesday. In fact, we'll take a look at the 7-day forecast coming